The topic of this panel is going to be about social prosperity and technophobia. And the core question I'll be asking our great panellists today is, can government succeed? So to briefly introduce the panel, I'll start at this end and come this way. I'd like to introduce Mike Cecilia, who is the Executive Vice President at Oracle. Great to have you, Mike. Sitting next to him is George Lee, Head of the Office of Applied Innovation and a member of the Management Committee at Goldman Sachs. Great to have you here, George. And last but definitely not least, Her Excellency Giedre Balcetti, Chancellor, Government of the Republic of Lithuania. Now, to set us up and to help set the scene before I bring the gentleman in, we are going to give Giedre a few minutes to give her view on this really, really important topic. So please join me in welcoming Giedre to the podium. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to open this distinguished panel. And there's no doubt that modernization of governments by applying modern technology and advances is something not new, it's something given, and there's no question if, it's a question how. And definitely technology has become the most important integral part of our existence. Governments are part, definitely, of every state and has to do their part of work. In the governments, we usually we face a constant growth of citizens' demands and expectations. Everyone who lives now in digitalized world are definitely used to very fast, very convenient services and next or even same-day delivery in a way. And digitization of governments is the only practical response to the demands of citizens. Digitization always starts with the digitization of services and digital processes. And so we can provide, of course, these public services faster, cheaper, and around the clock. Still, this value of convenience of digitization is limited, and it instantly becomes a new normal. Everyone, of course, expects what they get. But the information technologies allow us to leverage actually the true wealth of data, and data which is reliable, integrated, and real-time data. When that becomes held by and protected by separate institutions, is not available to entire public, not to general government and public sector. So our institutions are marked to do much more than just provide convenience when the data becomes available to everyone. And there was this famous saying, data is new oil, but on electricity now for that matter probably, but oil itself doesn't run cars, so data itself doesn't help governments to succeed. And the big promise of digital agenda is through awareness and better decisions what data is giving us. Because by analyzing rich data, we can understand complex reality, we can understand different phenomena which we couldn't do that before, and we can dismiss illusionary or wrong decisions and focus on real significant ones. Detailed, reliable data provides us opportunity to better target social policies like healthcare, social protection, and else. And real-time data allows governments to take decisions today on current issues rather than a few years later on issues that are issues of the past. In Lithuania, in my country, we learned it, I give an example in a hard way. In 2022, when energy crisis induced by Russia forced many European countries to allocate billions of resources to compensate sharp increase of energy prices, without necessary data on households, we were forced to establish unconditional price cap. And of course, we wasted funds as well, servicing everyone rather than to really targeting those who are most in need. So then one asks about technophobia, which was one of these topics of this discussion. I believe that technophobia definitely comes with digitization risks, which is privacy. And the necessity to collect comprehensive data, which is necessary for better decision making, might also pose a risk of decreasing privacy. And many current world citizens are very often worrying about this part. And definitely this decreasing of privacy, one may start to think about increasing control. And the question is how we can address this issue. I started my talk of how governments are forced to digitize to be more efficient, and I trust democracies somehow may be considered slower in making decisions because of this inclusiveness, but also democracies are more naturally somehow born to the digital age because they are designed with checks and balances and capable to protect our islands of privacy and force a machine of the government to really play by the rules, but also to be efficient and to deliver. And so this age of technology, technological change, we need to permanently reinvent how we do government, how we govern. For this, we need more democracy and better technology that would also address those issues of concern. So thank you very much.
Can I bring you in, Mike? I want to start, we'll get to the social prosperity in 5 minutes or so, but Mike, the technophobia, from your perspective at Oracle, I mean, how are you seeing it? How are you supporting governments? How are you addressing this issue of technophobia in the public sector?
Yeah, well, I think that when you talk about the current generation of technology, it's impossible to have a conversation with government or private sector and not talk about cloud. And one of the first bits of fear that surfaces is data sovereignty. So we're going to have all of these citizen-facing applications, healthcare applications, and banking applications. And usually the first question is, well, where's the data? And how do I keep it secured? And what we've been working on together with governments is what we think is an architecture to work together with governments for a truly sovereign architecture, meaning that the data never leaves the borders of the country, and that includes the primary data and the backup data. When we first started, hearing trepidation from governments throughout the world, it was usually because they're dealing with technology partners who will put a few, let's say, cloud computers in a country, but the data may get backed up somewhere else. And that can become a problem. It can become a problem for lots of reasons. Number one, it become a problem for policy and regulation reasons. Number two, it becomes a problem for cybersecurity reasons. And unfortunately, sometimes it becomes a problem when there's conflict in the world as well, because there's trust issues that can happen, and you'd much rather at least have your data in your zone, if not completely in your country. So I think the good news is that with the current class of cloud, everything in technology sort of gets miniaturized over time, and that's good because not every country wants to invest in huge buildings to house these very powerful computers that power the AI systems today. The fact that they've gotten smaller, they've gotten more economical, means that we can in fact have conversations with customers that are with governments rather, that are truly sovereign. And I think that will really help propel the next generation of citizen-facing services, particularly for very sensitive data sets like healthcare and things like that.
Mm. George, we had a great chat about, 45 minutes ago, but I mean, how are you thinking about, you're in a really unique position there at Goldman, but how are you thinking about sort of technophobia and helping governments through this transition period?
Yeah. First of all, I just think that history would suggest that fear of new technologies is a feature of the human interface to technology. And whether that's mechanical looms, whether that's horseless carriages, whether that's bicycles. I ran across an interesting piece the other day that was a very alarmist headline about the extraordinary human-defeating capabilities of GPT-2. And we would now look back only seemingly months later and say that was hardly a threat to humanity. Now, this is moving very fast. It's moving faster than any technology revolution in our history. But I also think we should take some optimism from the fact that, generation after generation, humanity faces a new technology. there's an initial phase of fear. We learn how to use it as a tool to propel humanity farther and faster than ever. We assimilate it, we co-develop, we co-evolve with it, and we move on to the next thing. So I tend to take an optimist's view. The difference is this is moving at an extraordinary, unprecedented pace. We have to be cognizant of that.
Right. And that's why I asked Florian earlier. I didn't mean to offend Florian. Sorry, Florian. But just from the public sector view, the private sector is moving so quickly. And it must be very difficult for regulators to keep up with all the experimentation in the private sector, whether it's in here in the Middle East or in Europe or the US or wherever. It must be difficult.
Absolutely. I mean, I had the experience of leading Goldman Sachs' technology banking group during the internet revolution, and I felt that was moving at wire speed. And this is, as I think Jensen talked about earlier, he talked about a 1,000,000-fold increase in the capability of AI in a 10-year period. It's almost impossible for humanity to grapple with that rate of change. And private institutions are trying their hardest. And I think what's interesting is the gulf between private institutions, which in a way are instrumented and organized to absorb and respond to change, versus governments, which are, designed in some ways to be resistant to change. And so that impedance mismatch, I think, is going to be fascinating to watch play out.
Absolutely. Giedra, can I bring you back into the conversation? I want to pick up this social prosperity part of the topic. My question to you, Giedra, is what's the role for civil society? You guys are doing a great job. You've got the private sector experimenting, pushing forward. What about civil society and the people within Lithuania or Austria with Florian? What's the role for civil society in working with the public and private sector?
I trust, that the role of civil society is always the same: to keep checks and balances and to see, to provide the view and not to be dismissed any of societal groups within the process, which is so fast, which everyone is acknowledged. And to be able to deliver to every group of society at the same time. So nobody is separated, nobody is excluded from the process as such. And to be part of, as I mentioned, democratic societies, definitely so, to be as a part of conversation and part of decision making as well. And not only part of decision making. When we talk about technology and data and how governments should operate in this current world, is also to be able to ensure the entire governance process. It's not only decision making where all groups of society and non-governmental sector as well to be part of, but also to see how we are really delivering and how we are delivering on our promises. Because the fast pace of life we are currently experiencing and will not change anyhow soon, probably the other way around, is that we tend to do lots of decisions, fast decisions, and sometimes it can be that somebody just falls out of scope. And therefore, this ensurance and entire governance process that the groups, different society groups, are part of the process of democratic decision making, but also monitoring the delivery and being able to signal to the government what doesn't work properly and how we can ensure that with a better technology, with a better decisions, with a better processes, and etc. So definitely, as always, there is
a big role.
A big role which exists.
And Giedra, are you doing that now? Are you trying to set up those processes, that framework with civil society to give you feedback, to listen?
Definitely so. I think there's no process, there's no decision without the involvement or any fundamental decision, reforming decision, without involvement of all societal groups. That's what I've mentioned. It takes time. That's why governments in our countries tend to, we tend to be criticized of making decisions a bit slower in a way, because this is very inclusive process all the time. Everyone is involved, everyone is part of the process, and that's why, of course, it takes a little bit longer. But then it gives us opportunity to really integrate all the views, all the approaches to the decisions.
Right, Mike. Can I come back to you on this sort of social cohesion point? How are you approaching that? How are you considering it? Does it factor into your decision making and plans and strategies around these technologies? Are you seeing the challenges out there with social cohesion in these technologies?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, one of the primary benefits of rolling out wide-scale government-based services is participation by citizens, economic participation for those who actually may not be participating today. So in many parts of the world, that involves not just the latest app on your phone, but connection and the phone in general, right? So there's a lot of prerequisites to actually being able to enable this in many parts of the world. And as you see traditional telcos even start to embrace low orbiting satellite and technologies like this to rapidly advance this, I think you're going to see a lot more social impact very quickly, even before, just with the basic connectivity that happens, even before we get into more discrete applications or more discrete systems that allow people to more fully participate in an economy, in a voting system, in a healthcare system, where you otherwise have disenfranchised populations today who are just so remote from that type of stuff. Yeah, but it's also not practical in many parts of the world to roll fiber out because of geographic issues, terrain issues, and things like this. So I think, as George said, we're really on the cusp of probably the single greatest technological revolution that we've seen in the history of technology. And by and large, it's always made us more productive so far. So let's hope that it hasn't made us destructive. So far, it's made us more productive. But you've got all these things coming together, right? I mean, AI supercomputers and the things that Jensen spoke about this morning, low orbiting satellite technology. And we really should get to a point, I think, very quickly in the next decade where there really is not a barrier or an excuse as to why someone couldn't fully participate and take advantage of citizen-facing services. The tech is, it's there and it's moving at a really fast pace.
George, you're nodding.
Yeah, I mean, I think all that's true. I think what's going to be interesting about this technology is we lived through a social media era which led to the creation of so-called filter bubbles. It tended to fragment society around people with like-minded beliefs, or et cetera, and there was a certain danger to that. I think the fascinating thing to watch with this, for anyone who has spent hours being a direct communicator with a machine intelligence, the possibility that this technology is actually more isolating is something I think we have to grapple with. The chance that it breaks you from being part of a broad community, then to a filtered community, now to just being a direct interlocutor with a machine in a kind of one-to-one relationship, the sort of digital assistant scenarios that you and I discussed off stage. I think the social impact of that is something that is something to be deeply sensitive to.
Absolutely. How many people in the room, if you put your hand up or keep it down, have spent quite a few hours with these machines, conversing with an AI? Many? Some? Oh, there's a few on the panel. There's a few in the room. Okay. So the question, we were, again, chatting earlier when my caffeine was at its peak, I'm a little bit worried about this. I'm a little bit worried about the AI assistant that I might have on my phone that I spend hours with. What's the objective it's maximising for me? And am I aware of that? Am I aware of that if I'm asking this AI to spend 3 hours with me? I mean, I just think the sort of interactions, the social interactions are going to be fascinating, and I think we need to all keep talking about them.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the history of social media, it's like, this new exciting experience. We don't give it a lot of forethought about what the ultimate impact, societal impact of it is. We engage, it's convenient, it's exciting, it's helpful, and then we arrive at a place where it's created social disconnection or social challenges we have to grapple with. By the way, I'm encouraged about the proliferation of discussions like this.
Absolutely.
That suggest we're putting a little bit more forethought into these issues. Again, given the momentousness, the speed, the impact that Mike talked about of this, I think it's getting proper attention. Just a little bit hard to predict the path of these things.
No, I agree, and I said on the last panel too that I'm probably on that optimistic spectrum as well, just because I'm seeing the public sector and the private sector talk a lot, and everywhere we go, which is rightly so. We've got another 2.5 days, a couple of more days of this. This is good. People have to keep working with the public sector, who I do think has good intentions. private sector has to do what the private sector does. But working together, I think there is some optimism there. Absolutely. Gedra.
Yeah, I just wanted to grab on social platforms, and this is something not new, no? Because this is how societies got defragmented with the social media and just in separate bubbles of their own reflections and echoes. And this gives governments really new challenge to reach out to all the multiple societies within one society, because of the dramatic change which social platforms already gave. And now it's yet another level, yes, it's getting more and deeper into this defragmentation. So I think the challenge of government definitely working with private sector, because governments are not developing technology and solutions. So this joint work is absolutely necessary. And for private sector to understand the needs of government really to service all citizens, which was probably the title of this panel, no? Not only those who are capable, not only those who are upfront and can make their own decisions easily, but also those who have difficulties in making their own decisions, who have challenges, who are more excluded. And for governments to be able to service also them, because the service of government should be invisible. It should be organized in a way that the citizen should not make effort in order to receive services of the government. It should be seamless and the same as we have many private sector services which we are receiving in a seamless way. So the role of government is to embed technology from the beginning of all the processes for servicing citizens, for being able to deal with the data, to analyze data in order to know what services we need to deliver, in order to deliver them in a seamless manner, that somebody should not come and demand, that I have right to some specific service. The government knows, the government has to deliver and can deliver with a new technology for sure. But new layers, of course, of defragmentation of societies gives more challenges to government in the current environment. And therefore, these challenges we are not yet, I'm sure, ready up to. But with a common work all together, I hope we will be able to address.
Absolutely. Mike, can I just throw one phrase that comes to my mind listening to you all speak is we do need an age of awareness. An awareness between public and private, but also civil society and individuals. I talked about my own digital AI assistant, but do you think we can develop this awareness with this new amazing technology? Do you think we can get this collective awareness where we actually know what's going on and we have some sense of
I think we're making progress, and I'll say that one area where I think we need more awareness together in cooperation with government is the regulatory process that governs the technology. So if you look at let's say that there's two tranches of technology in place today, the old stuff and the new stuff. The problem is the old stuff is really old, right? Really old and really insecure. Again, I'll make a sweeping statement, which isn't necessarily true for every government, because lots of governments have made great progress. But the new stuff also goes through a regulatory process, meaning that it's certified, and certain versions, certain specs are certified to run. The challenge is, as George said, this stuff is changing so quickly. And even something that's a couple years old, potentially today, could be used, could be a security risk. Because unfortunately, as great as all this is, it's also a huge target for bad actors throughout the world. And they would love to leverage and disrupt an economy or disrupt another country by infiltrating this stuff. And I think we have to change, the awareness is we have to change our frame of reference on the age of technology. Even something that's a couple years old can be really old by security standards, because these things change so quickly. Right. Now, the good news is with the cloud and with governments embracing cloud technology, we can change it all at once very quickly, and it's changed for everybody who's consuming the particular service, rather than having to go department by department, physical infrastructure by physical infrastructure. So I think the awareness is very good on the possibilities. I think the next step is, how do we get it to be sustainable so that we can keep the innovation cycle going without having collisions in regulatory processes that are necessary, I mean, necessary.
Absolutely,
Of course,
right.
they're necessary, but that we've got to be very agile in these processes as well.
Well, I think that means more panels, more summits, more conversations, and to keep that conversation, that partnership going. But we have unfortunately run out of time, so everyone please join me in thanking Mike, George and Giedra.